In this video, we're going to go over the Raise a Hood video structure. I'm going to cover aspects of editing as well as aspects of shooting. We always start our videos with the Raise a Hood video introduction animation, which is available for download. Here's what it should look like. I'm going to go straight into our introduction page, which has the make and model of car and the type of repair being done. The font to be used is always going to be Arial bold, and so you set that to about 120 point font depending on what software you're in, but you want it to be large enough to read in the page, of course, and to be dominant. And then your subtitle is going to be the repair being done, and I put that at 90 point font, but again, depending on the software you're using, that will change, but you always want your title to be larger. For the background, you want to be using the textured paper backdrop, which we have available for download in the link below. Otherwise, if you are editing in Final Cut Pro, it is built into the software and you can find that in the background options. You want the title page to be about 2 seconds long, and it'll go straight into your step description page. And so at the top, you'll have your step description, and at the lower left, you'll have your footer that gives important information. Again, default font is always Arial bold. You want to set the background box opacity to about 50% so you can see through it. For color, you want to be using the Raise a Hood green, and that file is available for download. Link below. You can use that file to match up the color of the font, or you can enter in the hex code or the Pantone number. And so you just want to always make sure that your step description and footer are always set to the Raise a Hood green color. For the step description, you want to be as descriptive as possible and use professional language. And for the footer, you want to give any pertinent information to the repair. So in this case, remove rear wheel, and then the information down here is the lug nut size and how many lug nuts there are. Step descriptions are always up for 1.5 seconds on the screen. You go into the repair, your step description and footer are always overlaid in the video, so they're always seen no matter what step the repair is in. I always start with an establishing shot with repairs, so that way the viewer can see where the repair is occurring on the vehicle. While you're shooting, you don't want to have too many tight shots because that can get too confusing. You always want to include a few wide shots for sure, especially when the repair is changing to a different spot in the vehicle. And so just make it obvious to the viewers to what's going on at all times. You want each step to be about 5 to 10 seconds long. Some steps, of course, will be a little bit longer depending on the complexity of what is happening in the repair. An hour-long repair, you should be editing to about a 3 to 5 minute long video. Again, now step 2 and the next bit of information that's helpful to the viewer for the repair. And then that goes into now here is removing the caliper. And then I transition to an overlay. These are also very helpful in showing the viewer where things are located. And I always put a drop shadow on the description and then circles and lines when necessary. There's a lot of different ways to create overlays. I personally go into Photoshop to do these, so I'll grab a screen shot from the video and then I'll bring it into Photoshop, do the overlay, and then bring the image back into the video. And I keep the overlays up for about 4 seconds on the screen, and then it goes into the action. You always want to put everything in foot-pounds to avoid confusion. Try to avoid using inch-pounds or Newton-meters whenever possible. You want to make sure those are torqued properly, so we want to be as accurate as we can with our information in these videos. From time to time, you're going to want to add audio that you gather while shooting the repair, as it could be helpful for the viewer. So in this instance, I use the audio of a sound that the car made that instigated the repair. You can also use audio from the mechanic when they're talking through the repair, as they can sometimes provide better information than a voiceover, as they're the ones who are doing the repair on the spot and can give tips and tricks to the viewer.
then there's 3 stakes here. You can see it's staked in. You're gonna have to pull these back.
Adding a voiceover on your behalf is optional. If you choose not to add a voiceover, just drop the audio levels in your video and only use sound from the repair when it's necessary. For adding a voiceover, your goal is to add an extra layer of clarity and detail. You only want to give necessary and helpful information, keeping in mind that the video is the main content for the viewer. Here's an example of a voiceover where only necessary narration is given, along with helpful information about tools and the procedure of what's going on.
Now again, Brian's using a couple of air tools here. If you did not have this air tool, which is frankly an inexpensive air tool, you could do that with a chisel and a hammer or even a hacksaw. With a little bit of oil or lubricating oil, he's impacting that out. Now, if this is an older vehicle, sometimes they don't come out as easily as you need. Here he's using an actual acetylene torch. If you don't have an acetylene torch, you can use MAP gas, which is found at your local hardware store. That heat will expand the outer area, loosen it up just enough that you can push it through. And there it is.
When adding a voiceover, it's something you'll have to practice as it takes time to get good at, and you'll find that writing a script for guidance is beneficial, but you'll want to speak in a way that sounds as natural as possible. And finally, the end credit. This file for this page is available for download. You just put in the mechanic's name and your name as videographer and editor, and then this is up for about 3 seconds at the end of the video, so everybody gets credit for the work that they do. For camera gear, I use 3 cameras. I use a Canon camcorder as my primary camera and shoot handheld. I also use a GoPro for wide-angle shots and getting into tight spaces. And lastly, I use a lid cam which I place on the bill of the mechanic's hat, and this gives a first-person perspective. By shooting with these 3 cameras, it gives me lots of options for editing. For lighting, I use a very basic setup. I just have a on-camera light attached to my main Canon camera while I'm shooting. I also use magnetic lights that I can move around while shooting the repair. They're nice because you can put them down in the engine or up on the hood. So magnetic lights are really handy for these repairs. I will set up anywhere from 2 to 4 magnetic lights while shooting, but don't overthink it. You are shooting these repairs on the spot as they happen. So if you're trying to move around a bunch of lighting gear, you're going to miss repairs as they go along, and it'll be harder for you to gather content. So you want to be able to move quickly, whether it's with your camera or your lighting gear, so you can always be grabbing what is going on with the repair. You don't have to have all of this gear in order to be successful when creating Raise a Hood videos. If all you have is your phone and a light or two, that's fine. You just want to make sure that the videos are clear, lit well, and easy to understand.